So, moving away from Alpha now, we're going to talk to the other actor from the Daniel Korth films, Hugo, and I'll be asking everyone some questions now. So, this is literally a question to everyone. What is your favourite film made by Daniel? And Daniel, what's your favourite film you've ever made on YouTube?
I think the best I've made probably would be Flawless. Lots of people who watch it tell me they don't understand it and it's murky and they don't know what the hell it's about, but for me there's so much subtext, and yeah, as I think we'll discuss later, there's quite a lot of show not tell in it, which for me is sort of pure cinema because there's no dialogue, and even if you don't understand what's going on, I think it can be interpreted in any way, which is sort of what art is about for me, and just the visuals and the performances and the atmosphere and everything. I'd say it's probably the best I've done.
The way I see that film is that someone, Nathan's character, has done something possibly wrong, and they've been taken to this church to be tested to see whether they'll live or go to heaven or hell or something like that. Is that what you were trying to go for?
I'm not saying anything. It's up to you guys to interpret it. I can't. Tell you mine. There's no definitive answer.
I guess Alpha is the one that I've been most heavily involved in. I mean, obviously I was in Flawless, but it was a much smaller role.
Yeah.
So Alpha was probably the one I've kind of got to know the most, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think like the running theme, and I guess Daniel's speciality or genre of film is that kind of mysterious and kind of shrouded in confusion, but open to lots of meaning. So like nothing's clear cut, but in the same way, it's not kind of boring or obvious. It leaves a lot to the audience, but there is kind of a lot for the audience to grapple on, if that makes sense. So yeah, I think, but I think for me, Alpha's been the most enjoyable because I was the most involved in that one.
My favourite one is definitely Skulker. Obviously, because I was in the first one, Contagious, and it feels like, obviously being there with Daniel through that process, it feels kind of weird to see kind of like how it's come over, like I think it was 2 years in between the two. So I just feel like that was probably my favourite one of his. Yeah, I feel like that was his best made one.
Yeah, just to fill in, Contagious is a film I made that isn't on YouTube, but it's the prequel to Skulker.
Oh.
So we made that a few years ago. Could put it up at some point.
I was obviously most heavily involved in Flawless, and honestly, that one just still holds a special place in my heart, really. I think there's something like beautiful in its simplicity, you know. Like, I think my character is just like wonderfully like rich, and like well, in my opinion, there's a lot of nuance to him. I mean, my acting was like decent, but there's a lot going on in there that you can really interpret for yourself. And everyone has their own sort of different experience while watching it. Everyone can take something away from it, and yeah, brilliant.
I've actually enjoyed all of Daniel's films, but I would say obviously I was heavily involved in Tree Hugger. Obviously, as you've watched it, it's a weird film. It's a weird film, like it's really, as you said, up for interpretation. But I really enjoyed that film. But I would say my favourite, I'm with Nathan. I really enjoyed his Flawless. Yeah, I really enjoyed it because obviously it can be hard to make a film with very little dialogue, obviously. So I like the way, obviously, with Nathan and how Daniel used images to create such an engaging film. So I really enjoyed, I would say, Flawless.
Also, Hugo, because you've worked on Hetty Feather, how would you say Daniel compares as a director to the directors on Hetty Feather?
So obviously, Hetty Feather is completely different to any of Daniel's projects. So Hetty Feather is obviously children's TV, so it's a lot more acting. But with Daniel's, it's more his visions, which is what makes his projects so much fun to work on. Because with Daniel, at least, you never know what you're gonna get. Even when he tells you what the film is, it could be something completely different in his head. So it's really fun because it's really unpredictable, and obviously he allows his actors to bounce off him, as I think someone else said. So I think it creates a very comfortable and very engaging work environment. But obviously, I like both directors, but I would say I prefer. Obviously, the other one's a professional, so Daniel's not quite there yet, but I'm sure he will be in a few more years.
Yes, I'm sure, because your films are really like quite individual, because they're not like your usual kind of film. They're very abstract, but also not abstract. So I'm sure in a few years' time you'll be making very, very high quality films. This is for all the actors. What's the moment that inspired you to start doing acting, not just in Daniel's films, but just in general, really?
This is not necessarily what inspired me to do acting, but it's one of my earliest memories of acting. It's actually with Daniel. I don't know if you remember, but we were doing I think it was like an advert or some TV show where we were in this garden picking carrots. And I don't know what, I just remember it. It just came to my mind.
It was on CBeebies.
Oh, was it? Oh, right. Yeah, I've never seen it. I've never actually seen the clip. I remember we bought the carrots from Sainsbury's and then dug them in the ground and pretended that we were like pulling them out of the ground.
I've always been like, I used to, as a kid, used to always do like theatre with like little school plays and stuff. And so I've kind of always like enjoyed acting in that capacity. But it was interesting because like whenever Daniel kind of started asking me to like work on films, because obviously I love films growing up. I've always wanted to try and like see if I could do it and just like give it a go. So I'd say probably Daniel is kind of what made me want to start acting.
That's quite sweet, isn't it?
Yeah, so I sort of picked up at school like Luca did. I did it straight from primary school, and I did plays with Daniel. I even did a musical once with Daniel, which is something I never do.
Wow.
I normally hate musicals, but I did it 1 year with Daniel. It was Legally Blonde, right? And Luca as well. And I didn't. It was something I didn't really want to do, but I just did it because trying new things. But yeah, so I've picked up through school, and obviously I've been very lucky to have other opportunities like outside. But yeah, I'm doing it at college now, so yeah, I'd say that it's what I want to do when I leave school and that. So that's good. Daniel also really helped with inspiration because it was really fun working on projects with him and be able to play really weird, different characters.
I think for me, like it was definitely my primary school because they really encouraged acting. We did like 2 or 3 shows a year, and they were very generous and usually gave me the main part. So I definitely developed my love for acting there. But Daniel and I, we made a few like really short trailers and stuff like together, like just some really like weird shit. We made this film, oh god, called Bloody Pom Bears. And it involved Daniel and I sort of like coming in from like a long day at school or something and finding my parents face up on the ground covered in ketchup, our substitute for fake blood, you know, savagely mauled to death by Daniel's dog Twiglet. So that was definitely that was an epic. I really think that should go on the channel, to be honest.
I will put it on YouTube someday.
Oh, that'd be incredible. I'm sure it'll go to Hollywood, you know. This is also for the actors. What is your dream role to play?
For me, I think something a bit like the role Daniel gave me for Alpha. But a sort of like manic villain, sort of sadistic. I just really enjoy playing those sort of parts. I think I just really like bringing that sort of aspect out of myself, and I think it's just great fun and pretty challenging as well in places.
And it's not really my dream role, but I played Christopher Boone from The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime, and obviously he's got quite strong Asperger's, and I think I really enjoyed bringing out that Asperger's in the character. I just remember a bit of a weird dream role to play Asperger's characters, but I actually really enjoyed that, and I think it kind of slightly ties in with Daniel's roles, and the kind of the world is confusing for them in the way that Daniel's character is generally quite confused about the world. They don't necessarily have Asperger's or autism, but that kind of like slightly abnormal character, not, I wouldn't say abnormal, but you know, not your everyday character. I think that's kind of my preferred kind of role.
Interesting, because I was literally going to say that I feel like I would like to one day play a character that's kind of not often discussed correctly in a lot of films, like in the big films, you know, like for example, someone with like a mental impediment, not necessarily Asperger's or like some sort of autism, but like, you know, with something similar like anxiety or like just want to like maybe EID, stuff like that. You know, like mental illnesses that never really get portrayed correctly. I think that'd be really interesting. Also, because I love like character studies as well. Obviously, that's one of my favorite kind of films. So something like that, maybe someone with like intense OCD, but like not how the films portray it, but like accurately. So I think that kind of stuff can be really interesting if done right.
I know it's a bit generic, but I'd love to be a bomb villain one day. That'd be so cool, just like. But other than that, something really comedic, like I don't know, like I'd love to play as like a student at school, or like something pretty normal, like just a comedic role. Because I would love to play, you know, one of those more comedic characters. But yeah, it's good. So I don't really necessarily have a dream role, but a bomb villain would definitely be up there, I would say.
Yeah, I can imagine you with some white cat stroking it.
Oh yeah, do you reckon? Yeah.
That'd be pretty cool to see.
Cool, that's cool. Yeah.